When it comes to fairness in EVE Online, there are many different viewpoints. Personally, I am a bit lax with it. I think that more things should be allowed, but that's really not the common consensus. I'm curious where you stand on what's fair in EVE Online. All of us start off with a single character on a single account. This is perhaps the standard way to play a single main character, right? But past that, people will make alt accounts, entirely different accounts with new characters, and log between them and put them even sometimes in different activities in different groups and log between them for whatever they feel like. This is all fairly decent. If you want to pay for multiple accounts and hop between them, who's stopping you? It's not a big deal, right? That's when multiboxing comes in. Because you're allowed to have alt accounts like that, people take them and they multibox, which means playing multiple characters simultaneously. I do this, you probably do this, many people do this. It's allowed. It's honestly encouraged. It's perhaps the favorite way to play EVE among those that have been playing it for a while. You control multiple characters with one computer. Manually, you have to switch between the clients, but you can do amazing things with virtually unlimited characters if you want to pay for them and manage them. So far, people are okay with multiboxing generally. Although many people think it's unfair as hell, other people will defend it, saying that you do have to exhibit skill in order to pull it off. And you need to have, you can't just multibox and expect to win everything. It goes further than that. You have to practice, and there is manipulation between the accounts and etc. There's a skill test. But what is past multiboxing? Well, input broadcasting. This is essentially the use of macros to control all of your accounts with a single key press. This is fairly degenerate for a number of reasons that I'm not even going to articulate what you can do with input broadcasting, but just understand that the delay between cycling through an arbitrary number of accounts is not insignificant in all ways. If you're like me and you're stubborn and you can't think of ways that really allow input broadcasting to shine outside of Rorqual boxing back in the day, I'll tell you, as it was told to me. What about in fleet fights, where you have to switch between targets and try to hope that the Logi doesn't keep up? If the Logi was input broadcasting, you would never kill anybody in a lot of fights. Something to think about. Input broadcasting is banned. You're not allowed to do it. It breaks a lot of paradigms of the game, and people are wholly uncomfortable with it, and specifically CCP is, and that's really all that matters. But what goes past input broadcasting? Is there even such a thing? Sure there is, of course. It's called full automation, botting, right? Botting can be more innocuous than input broadcasting, actually. For example, spinning an Ishtar, right? Not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion. Whereas input broadcasting 50 Rorquals back when they released excavators, huge deal. But full automation would be the extension of input broadcasting, because you're essentially doing many, many, many more actions with a single input versus one input for all of your characters. You're doing one input for an entire routine for all your characters. And so currently the line is between multiboxing and input broadcasting. And this is the part that gets me into trouble. I honestly believe that there are plenty of really decent arguments to move that line either below multiboxing or above input broadcasting. It means I would literally be curious to see what would happen if they banned multiboxing. Granted, that would be a huge backlash, but I'm just talking hypothetically. Or they allowed input broadcasting. And I went through my stream and I talked to people about this at length and got a lot of interesting perspective on it. And I gotta say, I'm still fairly convinced that the game wouldn't break if you allowed input broadcasting. In fact, if you allowed input broadcasting versus removed multiboxing, I think removing multiboxing would have more of an impact than the game altogether. Now, just to be clear, I don't input broadcast. I do multibox. I do have alt accounts. I play where the line is currently. I just think that it's funny to think that we've put the line at multiboxing and think that it happened naturally there. Because I want to make it clear. I also learned that other games let you multibox too that have subscriptions, something I didn't know. Like, wow, they let you multibox. You can't input broadcast though. But in EVE, I think it's interesting because I think the main reason that the game has settled on multiboxing being acceptable, but input broadcast not being acceptable, is not because multiboxing is a test of skill and input broadcasting is a bridge too far, but quite honestly, I think it's because it naturally settled there because of the financial incentives of allowing players to control multiple ships in a game that is as niche as EVE, right? This isn't some conspiracy. This is just common sense, right? The game allows it. It's really engaging. People want to do it, and it'll make the company more money to allow it. Input broadcasting, though, what the hell incentive do people have to? I mean, it just, you get nothing for it. You get something for multiboxing. That's why it's an unfair thing. It's not fair to multibox. I just want to make this clear. In my opinion, it's unfair, right? I do it. It's fair because everybody does it, right? But with multiboxing, you get something very important. You get a lot more money to the game, right? So drawing that line between alt accounts and multiboxing would honestly probably have killed this game a long time ago, in my opinion. But cutting off input broadcasting is just common courtesy because it's obnoxious and you really do want people playing your game if possible instead of essentially automating the inputs. So I am empathetic to it, but I can't help but imagine if they allowed input broadcasting that it probably wouldn't break the game. It would do a bunch of really weird things and things would get funky. It would. And people have pointed this out to me numerous times that it would get funky. But I think that multiboxing is funky as hell. It's just we're so used to it, right? So anyway, I just wanted to talk about this, and I'm very curious to know what you guys think. Of course, naturally, a lot of opinions on this topic. I just want to know this. Are you a single character player? Do you have alt accounts, right? Do you multi-box? Obviously, what are your thoughts on input broadcasting and botting in general? Are you just wholly against it? Do you hate it? Do you hate the idea? Do you think it would ruin the game? Why would it ruin the game, right? For example, maybe you think multi-boxing is a bridge too far. Maybe you can tell me why you think that's a bridge too far. I really doubt many people have too many issues with alt accounts. It's really just multi-boxing that tends to drive the single boxers nuts. So anyway, I'm definitely curious what you guys will have to say about this one. I'm personally of the belief that I think allowing input broadcasting for a brief period of time and studying what people do with it, making a few changes, I think it could be potentially allowed. The argument of accessibility is BS, I admit. I've made it before, but it would be interesting. But I bet many other people would rather just clap multiboxing altogether. So tell me what you think. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you. I'll have talks like this occasionally. I got stuff to say, so, you know. Adios.